Africa is the continent most ravaged by every catastrophe known to humankind. Yet Africa is a living territory, one which regenerates itself as quickly as it is destroyed, one which has become an expert in finding solutions to unimaginable problems. If Africa continues to survive, rebuild itself, and grow in spite of the difficulties it faces, it is thanks to the internal mechanisms of solidarity and systems of self-help that it is developed to meet the needs of its most destitute inhabitants.
To be physically disabled is to be marginalized by society. People say disabled people hide away in the attic, but I wanted to do more than that. I work in fuel trafficking. We can't really do anything else, except beg at traffic lights.
The 130-kilometer highway that links Lagos, the capital of Nigeria, and Benin, is flooded every day with vehicles whose occupants smuggle fuel. Petrol costs twice as much in Benin as it does in Nigeria, and the majority of the smugglers are polio victims whose presence is tolerated by the police. This disease is one of the greatest tragedies to devastate West Africa. In Benin alone, there are 500,000 sufferers who have no access to specialized treatment. Along the highway, an environment of mutual assistance and support has been created that makes the work of these polio victims easier.
When we see children playing soccer, we feel really jealous. Parents have to be educated so that what has happened to us doesn't happen to other children. We need to ask parents to take their children to the hospital to be vaccinated. I'm a mechanic. My job is to rebuild the mopeds the guys with polio use to transport fuel. I do this by stripping down 2 Vespa mopeds to make one vehicle with a 400-liter tank. I place the tank on one side of the vehicle. The brake and accelerator pedals have to be on the handlebars, because these people can't use their feet. If the tank were to come into contact with the spark plug, everything would catch fire.
During the journey to the Nigerian border, the polio sufferers are usually accompanied by a mechanic who assists them with any problem that may arise on the road. This assistant is shared in case one of the others needs him.
Our role is to help the driver, but never to take his place. I'm here to help him if something goes wrong with the vehicle or with any other problem that might happen on the road. All of this depends on several factors, such as repair costs, the income of the person accompanying me, the availability of the product, etc. Since when fuel is scarce on the Benin market, its value increases. There's also the fluctuation of the naira, which is the currency we use. Benin is the land of experiences. The government isn't behind this activity. It's the disabled people themselves who have found a solution. And society believes it, accepts it, and, let's say, tolerates it. Because in reality, transporting fuel is illegal. Polio has wreaked havoc in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, and more specifically in Benin. Today, 7% of the population suffers from the disease, but unfortunately, only 1% of them receive proper care. Despite all of the vaccination and awareness campaigns that have been carried out, many people, for religious reasons, will not allow themselves or their children to be vaccinated. I was very young when I got the disease. From what my parents told me, I must have been about 6 when I came down with a very high fever. They took me to the hospital, and after that, I never walked again. The authorities, the police, the customs officials, they turned a blind eye and let us through. Fuel trafficking is illegal. But we, the forces of law and order, turn a blind eye when it comes to people with polio. It's a means of subsistence for them. When a person transports a certain amount of fuel, if he gets into an accident, the vehicle could explode at any time. The person and the moped are like a bomb on wheels. This activity is against the law, but you have to remember that in Africa, the rules have exceptions. This type of solidarity has been asserted by Africans and has become something specific to Africa.
Once in Nigeria and faced with the difficulties of communicating in English or French, money becomes the common language. With their tank full, Hervé and Boris must then return to Benin, where they will sell the fuel. In spite of the danger, and thanks to everyone else's collaboration, this activity allows Hervé to earn a decent living.
I make 10,000 francs per trip, which I keep. If I make 2 trips in one day, I earn 20,000. If there's a problem with the vehicle, I make sure the driver rests. If he wants anything, I'm here to get it for him. If we stop to eat, I bring him food. I also help him if he needs to go to the restroom. On the road, I'm his best friend. When you're disabled, everything is so difficult. Often you feel shy, but this activity allows you to interact with people. The people of Benin show solidarity with each other. Listen, we're the only ones who do this in the entire sub-Saharan region. We're the only ones who can go to Nigeria and return and sell fuel in Benin. So you could say there's a clear sense of solidarity among us.
In Bambara, Yeredeme means to love oneself. Yeredeme is the name 15 single mothers have given to their project in the city of Mopti. These women perform different activities that earn them enough money to survive. In Africa, to be a single mother is to be rejected by society. These mothers have joined together in order to survive through mutual assistance and training. They know that learning the language of white people is the first step to creating new opportunities for themselves, and to that end, they have hired a local professor.
Un gros camion a cogné une petite voiture. Gros camion. Encore. A cogné une petite voiture. Maman, une petite voiture.
Une petite voiture.
Il y a un accident. Un accident sur la route.
At the association, we take in single mothers. We have various activities, such as catering, making preserves, and sewing.
Currently at Yeredeme, we have 13 mothers with their children. Several other women have come here and then left the association, some because they found work, others to set up their own businesses.
To be a single mother is to be alone, as the majority of these women are. They are even marginalized within their own family. They have to manage on their own to feed their children and themselves, which isn't always possible for them to do. They come to the association to find peace and to earn a little money.
Voici Adama, son père et sa mère. Il y a un accident. Il y a un accident. Un accident. Il y a un accident. Un accident.
I have nothing to just to feed them. I have nothing just to prepare their life on the right way, something like that. I simply happy by the circus, what they are doing, what I taught them. When I began this circus, I was simply just to train the others to do what I can do. That's it. Nowadays they can do many miracle and fascinating things. I'm very happy with it.
Zodou Misaile is the trainer and promoter of the Fasil Circus of Gondar in Ethiopia. It is a creative street circus made up of young people with few resources who have found in the circus a way of life. The circus tradition in Ethiopia is very recent, having been introduced by Marc Lachance, a Canadian professor who came to Ethiopia during the expatriation of the Falasha, or Ethiopian Jews, to Israel. While they awaited their turn, Lachance entertained children with juggling acts, which the children quickly learned. Later, he began working to get children off the streets and formed the first circus in Addis Ababa. Acrobats and magicians were already in existence back in the times of the Ethiopian Empire. The new acts and development of the show, in the form of a modern circus, made a lasting impression on the local residents. Today in Ethiopia, there are 29 small provincial circuses and one large national circus. Zodou, with no resources whatsoever, tries to help those boys most in need to develop their skills.
In the circus, we do give the opportunity to train many deaf guys who are retarded, mentally absent, some kind of guys. We would like to motivate them to work with us because they would be a good example for the others. Those are deaf like them. They can do what we are doing, just like this. Now he's one of the members. He's also to have some kind of problem according to his health. I began to train him with the circus. Now he's working with us. This little kid, after we begin to organize, he comes to the circus. He was about 7 years in age when he comes to the circus team. Nowadays he's 11 years in age. 14 years he was training with us. Now he's a very playmaker for the circus. You can see what he can do with us. Not only the little kids, but also the younger ones. Especially, I love all of them. Just sometimes I consider that as if I'm their father.
Gondar is a small city in the north of Ethiopia, on the outskirts of Lake Tana. When the rains are benevolent, the region in which the city is located is rich, surrounded by lakes and fertile lands, which in their day formed the crossroads of the three great caravan routes that traversed this part of Africa. Gondar was the perfect place to build a capital city, one that dominated vast territories. And Gondar was such a city for over 200 years, starting in the mid-17th century, the most glorious in the history of Ethiopia.
Nobody taught me circus, how to train, not only how to train the others, but also how to train myself. Nobody taught me. I simply ask myself, am I not able to do this thing like that? I ask my mind how this thing is to be done. Not only the circus, but also the materials. The materials are not here in Gondar, not only in Ethiopia.
In addition to being the promoter of the Facile Circus, Zodou is also a mechanic, though the latter is not work he carries out separately from the circus. From his shop come the pieces which he uses to design materials for the show.
When I began to establish, the first time, I began alone. Nobody were besides me. I was working in a garage. I do have my own salary per month, what I receive from the owner of the garage. I simply go and find some kind of steel materials, wood materials, to make them by modification. I simply modify them from the garage. Say, for example, clubs, tight roping, steel walking, unibike or one-legged bicycle like this.
This makes me proud as a father because I believe that Zodou is a man who has made his own decisions and has decided to help people. Even when we wanted him to study instead of doing training exercises. But he insisted on continuing, on doing both at the same time. That's what he told us, so we would allow him to continue.
My son spent the whole day training. I was worried that he might break a leg or something, and I forbade him to go. When I spoke to him like that, it made him very upset.
During that time, I would like to watch cinema, and I see many gymnastics, many martial art artists from Hollywood presenting so many things through cinema. Just by watching what they are doing, I become more motivated to keep on working in gymnastics. Okay, this is a place where we take, this is our gymnasium. You can see this material. It is simply a part of the axle part of the car from the back wheel side. And this dumbbell is the modified one. It's not the original one. It's made of aluminum. Just we go to the garage and they melt the aluminum in a different kinds of weight, and they prepare it this way. Just it seems like the original one. It has got the same function like the original dumbbell.
He makes us study and helps us by buying materials like pens and notebooks, so we can go to school in the best possible conditions.
Abu Bakr, like the majority of the kids in the Facile Circus, was living on the street. Today he receives training and 1 meal a day, something to which few children living in Ethiopia's rural areas have access.
Most of the members were from orphans, and some of them are from very, very poor families. Those have no any good income toward their lives. Those are deaf, not only deaf, but also the retarded people. In order to prepare their lives into the right way, in a proper way, I have no any advantage just to prepare. This is what makes me to feel miserable many times, so many times. But nowadays what they are doing is very good.
Mulukan, deaf and dumb since birth, has also found in the circus his purpose in life. Thanks to Zodou's help, he is able to attend a center for special education.
I have no any course. I didn't take any course just to communicate with such kind of people. Him and I do have only our own language to communicate. Not the right. It may not be the right way. I simply understand what he intended to tell me, and he do understand me. We do have some kind of our own language.
Today is an important day for Gondar's Fasil Circus. Today is the circus's 5th birthday, and it's going to celebrate with a special performance which relatives and close friends will attend. It will be held next to the castle of King Fasilides, the symbol of the city.
Today we are getting ready in order to celebrate the 5th year anniversary of Circus Gondar. We have called the parents of the kids of the Circus Gondar and many people, about 200 people in the city. We are getting every equipment ready in order to present a beautiful show.
In addition to acrobats and jugglers, the circus in Ethiopia features musical and theatrical shows that carry a strong social message. The problem of AIDS, human rights, and domestic violence are recurrent themes.
Just we can change their lives. This is a very good culture, not only from country to country, but also from a body to the body. Say, for example, in our unity, one of the students' parents may go die. We find money just to collect, and we go ask in order to help, something like that. So solidarity for myself is a very good culture.
Another element that makes the circus special is that the performances are usually free. The resources to maintain the circus's activities come from shop owners and local families that support Zodus and his collaborators' joint efforts. As they grow up, the older children take responsibility for teaching the younger ones, and together they contact other children in difficult circumstances. Some of them, if talented enough, may end up traveling to Addis Ababa to work in the national circus. Another example of spontaneous organization around a social stigma is the Yanyigiso Association in Mali. Women who have improperly healed fistulas have come together to fight against the social rejection produced by this condition.
Obstetric fistula is a condition in which a hole develops between a woman's vagina and her bladder or rectum. It's usually the result of a very, very difficult birth. Women with this condition leak urine constantly. Since they are unable to control their urine, it's not difficult to imagine that these women are often socially ostracized. This condition can be treated with 1, 2, or up to 6 operations. When the women arrive, they usually spend a lot of time here, 2 or 3 months, until they are healed. During that time, they need to make a living. The Organization Doctors of the World performs the operation, but they only handle the medical aspects, the surgery, not those relating to the woman's daily life. When we realized this, we wanted to come together to support each other and to find a solution.
The women of this association make cloth that they later sell in the market. Their methods are as traditional as they are basic, but the money from the sales allows them to support themselves and their children. It is said that in Mali, there is at least one woman that suffers from a fistula in every village.
When it was time for the baby to be born, it was a major problem because I couldn't give birth. They called one of the old women of the village so she would help me, but the baby still didn't come out. Everyone was frantic. They tied my belly and gave me a lot of mixtures to drink. They cut my vagina, but nothing worked. Finally, the baby was born, but it was born black, rotted by the fluids it had drunk, and it was dead. Since then, I can't contain my urine or feces. My husband and his family abandoned me. Nobody would feed me. I was alone, and nobody would touch me because they thought what I had was AIDS.
We try to find a solution to every problem, however difficult it may be.
Here, I've started a new life until the day this disease tires of me.
The most important thing is love. I go walking a lot. I see them lying down. I try to make them get up, but often sleep doesn't help matters. I tell them, come with me, because on the street all you find is violence. Come with me and you'll have a place where you can be happy. You can bathe, you'll have clothes, something to do. And if you have a family, I'll do everything I can to reunite you with them. My name is Kansaye, and for many years I lived on the street. This story is my story.
Adama Diallo, better known as Kansaye, is the benefactor of the street children of Mopti, one of these anonymous heroes that inhabits African cities. He lived on the street himself and was taken in by a French NGO working in Mopti. With them, he learned to read and write. When he grew up, he became an instructor at the same NGO to try to give back what he had learned. In the year 2000, the NGO was forced to close for economic reasons, and the children had to return to the streets. But Kansaye took care of them personally, with no outside help or any other resources but his imagination and willpower. Mopti is a port city on the banks of the Niger River, in which dozens of emigrants from rural areas arrive every day. Many children are abandoned due to a lack of resources or orphaned due to AIDS. Kansaye's goal is to get them off the street as quickly as possible. To achieve this, he provides a school for them, clothes, food, and activities that they can use to support themselves and which might serve as a profession in the future. He goes from house to house, shop to shop, asking for help for the 15 children in his care. One of his collaborators is Salif Cissé, a Quran teacher who provides shelter to the youngest children and teaches them to read and write.
sa, ja, ha, ha.
Then?
A, ba, ta, sa, ja, ha, ha.
Are you done?
A, ba, ta, sa, ja, ha, ha.
Done?
Ba,
Ta.
ta, sa, ja,
Ha.
ha,
Ha.
ha,
Ha. Ha. Ha.
ha,
Ha.
ka,
Ha.
ha,
Ha.
ha, ha, ha.
Matali. Are you done?
A, ba, ta, sa, ja, ha, ha.
Ne ba in bena de bange dum mi ka bo ginya kono.
What I teach these children, I teach in order to prepare them for life. Islam teaches them to understand certain norms and to follow certain rules of conduct. But the important thing is that eventually they can become tailors or carpenters. I know Kansaye well, and I think the work he's doing with these kids is extraordinary and deserves support from everyone. If it weren't for people like Kansaye, what future would these children have? You see them everywhere in the city, starving, with little clothing, no place to sleep. They don't know what to do. Kansaye's goal is to rescue these children, make them aware, and teach them another way to live that isn't wandering aimlessly through the streets. There are children here that have come from far away, and Kansaye takes care of them. He even makes sure that they return home. We recently had a boy from the Ivory Coast. Kansaye gave him clothes and taught him a trade. He then went to speak with the boy's parents. They accepted him and even paid his return trip. Now this child is doing very well for himself. I thank God for this. Here in Mali, you have to pay for everything. Registration for school, notebooks, books, pens. If they get sick, they have to be cared for. It's also important that they carry some money with them. We've all had this experience. You go out to recess and the other children buy something. If you can't have what they have, you get jealous of your friends.
Before I met Kansaye, I was a little thief. I went to the port and stole small things. I spent the day with my friends. We got into fights. We were little crooks. I'm the 10th of 12 children. My parents didn't love me. They beat me. So I decided to run away. During that time, Kansaye saw me and asked me to go with him. I did, and now I'm off the street. I've liked drawing since I was young, but when I arrived at the center, I started working in carpentry. I was the apprentice of the father of one of these kids. One day I saw other people painting, and I really liked painting. So I told Kansaye that I wanted to change from carpentry to painting, and since then, I spend all of my time painting. We give the drawings we do to Kansaye. He has contact with tourists. He shows them our work and explains who did the drawings and why. Sometimes they're sensitive to our problems, and they buy the drawings. Sometimes they don't. He gives some of the money from the sales to us, and the rest he uses to cover the costs of the other children. The older kids teach the younger ones what we've learned.
Ça, il y a beaucoup de gens. Il y a beaucoup de gens. Il y a beaucoup de gens.
Il baigne dans le Niger, mais il a un slip. Ah oui, il a mis le slip.
Tiens, ça c'est pour ton père.
Ça c'est pour mon père. Ça c'est sûrement un garçon. Hein?
Ouais, ça serait marrant de voir si... regarde.
Sidi Ouedraogo is 19 years old and is originally from Burkina Faso. Before he met Kansaye, he was, like many boys his age, a garibou, a street child. Thanks to Kansaye, Sidi has developed a very interesting skill. He takes photographs using an empty tin can, photographic paper, and a light meter. When Kansaye took him in and asked what profession he wanted to learn, Sidi said he wanted to be a photographer. Kansaye took him to work with a professional photographer with whom he learned the technique. 2 years ago, he exhibited his photos in Paris.
This technique is called camera oscura. These are tin cans that people don't use anymore. I recycle them, coat the inside with black paint, and make a very small hole that I cover with tape. In the laboratory, in the dark, I make the negative. I put it in the box and hermetically seal it. Then I go outside, and when I want to take a photograph, I measure the amount of light I need, which can vary from 1 second to an hour. When Sidi went to France, his friend said, "That's not true. There's no way he was able to go on a plane just because of a tin can."
Omar has just been taken in by Kansaye. He is 9 years old. His family abandoned him after he was repeatedly raped by one of his uncles. He wandered the streets of Mopti for months before Kansaye took him in. Today, he will start to work under the supervision of a carpenter who is a friend of his.
There are children who are murdered in the street, in the market, in the port, next to Bar Bozo. There are children who have been raped, prostitution, crazy people who beat them, who steal their shoes, clothes, blankets, what little money they have. This is where my work begins.
Tu as vu, papa, il est venu comme toi, hein? Tu as vu, mais c'est bien travaillé. Il faut avoir du courage, hein?
Moi, je suis le patron, mais papa est adjoint. Donc, c'est ton patron. D'accord?
Omar, il faut avoir du courage, hein? Tu as vu, papa? Aujourd'hui, il peut tout faire, hein? Si tu es courageux, tu vas devenir même plus que papa. Tu as vu, papa, il peut tout faire maintenant. Tu as compris? C'est son patron, votre patron l'aime beaucoup. Il faut bien travailler, hein?
Boubacar and his 2 new apprentices are going to visit Kansaye so he can look over the work they have done. Musa and Alpha have spent 2 years with this supportive, spontaneous, and self-managed organization. The role of the older boys, such as Boubacar or Sidi the photographer, is essential to the future of Kansaye's work.
Bonsoir. Ça va? Moïse, ça va? Boubacar, ça va? Alpha, ça va bien? Tous les 3, ils ont tout dessiné. Alpha et Moïse. Ah bon? Et Alpha, et toi, qu'est-ce que...
On a dessiné la grande mosquée de Wangori.
La grande mosquée. Mais ça commence comme c'est petit à petit. Voilà. Donc, un jour aussi, ils seront comme toi. Ah, ça, c'est bien, ça. Moïse, je peux voir vos dessins? Ça, c'est pour Moïse. Ah. Ça, c'est pour Alpha. Vraiment, les dessins sont magnifiques. Hein. Je crois qu'avec le temps, ça peut bien améliorer. C'est très bien, c'est pas mal.
The work of Kansaye and his collaborators is marked by success. Only 1 out of every 4 children he takes in off the streets of Mopti returns to a life of poverty. The rest manage to keep moving forward. But not all of Mopti's children can join Kansaye's organization. He chooses them from among those with the most potential. He can only care for between 15 and 20 at a time. It is estimated that in Mopti, a city of 40,000 inhabitants, 300 children are homeless. They beg for money, scavenge through the trash, or catch fish in the mud.
To catch these kids, I walk through the bus station, by the mosques, the dump, the ports, many places. Children are like fishing. You find them where you least expect to.
When the river waters recede, some fish stay trapped in the mud. These fish are diseased. They usually cause food poisoning, but they serve to calm one's hunger.
If their mother is dead or divorced, other family members take care of the boys. But they join homes that already have many children and don't receive the love and care they need. They end up running away, finding refuge in the streets, creating a family with the rest of the homeless kids. There are also the children born out of wedlock. Here, if a man and women have not had a religious wedding ceremony, even though they might have had a civil one, their child is considered illegitimate. This is work that cannot be done by one person alone. It should be shared by parents, teachers, the state, all of us. I owe everything I am to Kansaye. He has taught me how to behave in life. If I'm happier now, considering the difficulties I've lived through, it's because of him. I've seen foreigners get excited about our work, but they have no idea how much we have suffered to get where we are. If you don't know what it's like to be raped, if you've never felt hunger gnawing at your belly, if you don't know what it's like to be beaten by your own parents, you just can't imagine what we're talking about here.
Les signatures, bon, normalement, on doit mettre ça la prochaine fois en bas. Tu as fait ça où, ça? Tu as fait des photos, ça c'est les photos de qui? Ça c'est les poteries, hein? C'est très joli.
There are many reasons why children end up on the street. The majority of them are orphaned. In the last several years, AIDS is the major cause behind orphaned children. Leisure is another aspect of Kansaye's work. He's formed a football team with the kids he looks after, and he's entered the team in the local football championship.
Some would say, I think he's a headhunter. It's impossible. How can he take care of street kids? They asked me, what kind of work is this? They didn't understand it. They yelled, he's crazy! Who knows what he does with those children? But in the end, they understood, and now they appreciate what I do. My dream? To become a great photographer, to be someone, so I can help children who are suffering the same things that I lived through as a kid.
I want to be an artist. I want my city and country known through my drawings. That day will come.
Il faut produire. Regarde ces enfants, si tu es vieux, si tu es vieille, c'est des enfants.
They say you have to care for children so that when you're older, they will care for you. But that isn't true.
Tu n'introduis pas un enfant. L'enfant, il est aigri. C'est l'enfant, c'est la terre.
Children are like the earth. With them, you reap what you sow.